I wanted to start by talking about the rain that we've seen, because really it has been incredible. Where we see these blue colors here right across Tampa Bay and across the coast, and even kind of down to, say, Port Charlotte areas, straight across to Deltona, and then up into parts of the Panhandle. These are areas where our rain is running 2 to, in some cases, 300% above normal. So you just put that into perspective. This is the area here, and you can really kind of see where this storm just scraped across parts of Central Florida. We have gotten so much rain, not just for this rainy season, but now right on through October. We typically only get about 1 to 2 inches of rain, and we have seen some incredible rainfall accumulations. St. Petersburg, nearly 19 inches of rain, and this just was over, a 12-hour or less period. A lot of that came down in about 6 hours, and then in the several hours before and after, it was able to tack on even more. About 14 inches for Zephyr Hills, Holiday, Clearwater. And as for Tampa, we saw the highest amount of rain that we have seen on record. We're talking second wettest day, nearly 11.5 inches. And, if you can see that total there, 11.45. So we were 2/100ths of an inch just shy of tying that record set back in the 70s. Some good news is, as we look at our rainfall map right on through next Wednesday, not a whole lot to talk about. You could see a couple of showers will be possible further to the south of us, right around the Fort Myers area and down to the southern base of the peninsula. And then even as we're tracking a cold front middle of next week, that's going to be a dry front for us. So we're not really talking about a lot in the way of rain right on through the weekend and most of next week. Exactly what we need here for our cleanup, our restoration efforts is generally some pretty nice weather. And so as I play out your futurecast, notice with those east winds, maybe a couple of showers will try and move through, but they will be very spotty and very light. So if you do catch one, should not be a big impact there. Now on the backside of Milton, we've got high pressure and drier air that's going to continue to stay with us around the state. So with that, we're talking temperatures staying right around the mid-80s through Tuesday. Then you can see that dip with that cold front I was just talking about. I'm tracking high temperatures that are likely going to top out in the upper 70s looking ahead to next Wednesday. So great news as we check on power outages. Unfortunately, so many in the dark, but at least we can throw the windows open and have some of this cooler air. Well, it looks like about 380,000 still without power in Hillsborough, close to that in Pinellas as well. And even as we get into Pasco County, 76,000 without power, 84,000 around Lakeland and parts of Polk County. So highs today, we're talking right around 84 for Tampa. Most of us are going to top out right in this range here, maybe a couple of spots around Northport, Arcadia. You get up to about 86, 87, but that's about it. Breezy conditions, maybe up to 15-mile-per-hour winds. And so tonight, a low of about 67 in Tampa, low 70s closer to the coast there, but overall really comfortable conditions. It is going to take some time for our waters to calm down. We're still talking choppy on the bay today, moderate chop on Sunday, seas around 3 to 5 feet, down to 2 to 3 feet for tomorrow. And as for our tides, we're just now passing that high tide cycle, or rather coming up on it here, just a couple of minutes away. Then our low tide hits 5:35 for tonight. And there's your 7-day forecast. A lot of sunshine, dry weather, and cool weather in sight for the week ahead. Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Valerie Mills. Thanks for logging on to My Fox Hurricane, where really it has been a very busy couple of weeks here around the Sunshine State. We're actually talking about this hurricane season into the record books for many reasons, with 3 landfalling hurricanes in less than 9 weeks, and we're talking less than 300 miles apart. This ties for the most landfalls in a season. We look back to some of our most active hurricane seasons, 2004, 2005, and that's the sort of activity that we're talking about. 2004 was that year where we had hurricanes Charlie, Francis, and Jean make landfall, but also Hurricane Ivan that actually made landfall in Alabama did bring some impacts to us, and that was about as close as it could have come to making landfall also in the state of Florida. So really that was one of those seasons where it was just back to back to back as far as the hurricanes making landfall. Some other records that we saw here was the rainfall that came down during Milton. As for Tampa, second wettest day on record with 11.43 inches of rain falling on Wednesday as the storm was approaching. That made landfall Wednesday night on Siesta Key about 8:30, 120-mile-per-hour winds as a Category 3 hurricane. St. Petersburg, wettest on record with 18.78 inches of rain falling. That is a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall event. We had a flash flood emergency that was issued from our Tampa Bay National Weather Service office. Clearwater was a part of that as well. 14 inches of rain falling, and a lot of that came down in about a 6 to 8 hour period. So that caused a ton of unprecedented flooding and rescues, water rescues all across the area. The other thing that Milton was able to produce an amazing amount of tornado and tornado warnings. And we're not talking typical tornadoes that we see here in Florida, even associated with hurricanes. These were massive wedge tornadoes, very dangerous and unfortunately very damaging. We're still continuing to get all those preliminary results in, but we know 106 tornado warnings were issued. That was a record amount for Florida in a single day. And you can see right where Milton scraped across central Florida, and all of those warnings came with all of the outer rain bands, even across the East Coast. We saw several tornadoes touching down. Now, as we talk about what's happening in the Atlantic Basin moving forward, we actually have a strong dip in the jet stream here. That's kind of going to continue to enhance across the southeast. And so with this jet stream dipping south, that actually kind of keeps hurricanes and activity away from this area. This is very strong steering flow. And so that is some good news for the area. We're not tracking anything in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of Mexico. And so the areas that we are tracking well off into the eastern Atlantic. We still have Tropical Storm Leslie and a newly developed wave that we're watching for some additional tropical development. About 40% odds for that to further form and develop into potentially a tropical depression, a tropical storm in the next 7 days. We're talking about 40% odds of that. As for Tropical Storm Leslie, that's still with sustained winds about 50 miles per hour, quickly moving to the northeast at about 24 miles per hour. So this is moving off to the north and east, heading away from the continental U.S. And even though further weakening is expected the next couple of days, this may be moving into areas around Spain, around France, bringing them some rain. Likely no longer a tropical system by the time it gets there, though. Now, here's that tropical wave that I was just mentioning to you that we're watching just off the coast of Africa. It is looking a little bit more impressive. You can see some of those thunderstorms, the enhanced convection, and some brief rotation trying to get going there. So this is the wave that we will be keeping a very close eye on in the next several days. Invest 94L is what we're calling it as of Saturday morning. And so you can see where these models take it. Generally kind of dip it toward the south as it continues on that westward path where maybe this starts to impact parts of the Caribbean islands, the Leeward Islands, with some rain and some bigger surf. But it does look like this kind of moves into an area that's not too favorable for additional strengthening. So if this does become a depression or a tropical storm, it may be a short-lived system that we're talking about. But regardless, we're going to be keeping a close eye on this, any additional areas that might pop up. And of course, we'll have all the updates to come right here on My Fox Hurricane.